Now to the US state of Texas, where Amazon founder Jeff Bezos has just returned from a historic, albeit short journey to space. Fellow billionaire Richard Branson stole a bit of his thunder when his own suborbital trip earlier this month, but the Bezos rocket went higher and had a paying customer. As Paolo Montecillo reports, it's just the beginning of a high-stakes contest to cash in on the cosmos.
And New Shepard has cleared the tower on her way to space with our first human.
Out of the Earth's atmosphere and into the history books. Blasting off on board Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket were the oldest and youngest ever astronauts. And at the center of it all was the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos, who brought his brother along on a flight of a lifetime. It's the latest chapter in this generation's space race. Earlier this month, British billionaire Richard Branson became the first person to finance his own trip to suborbital space. His Virgin Galactic voyage took him to an altitude of 86 kilometers, meeting NASA's criteria for space travel. But the accepted international threshold, which the Bezos crew reached, is higher.
But Carmen had, I guess, wrote a paper about where does the atmosphere end, where does space begin, and people settled on 100 kilometers as a convenient round number. And a lot of it's used internationally, sort of as the kind of unofficial number for where space begins.
A difference of about 20 kilometers may seem inconsequential, but it could be a major selling point for companies offering tickets for out-of-this-world trips. U.S. firm Northern Sky Research says the space tourism market could be worth $8 billion a year by 2030.
We intend to have 2 more flights this year in 2021 for a total of 3 flights, and many more to come in the future. So we have already built a robust pipeline of customers that are interested.
We've all of us on this stage have just had the most extraordinary experience, and we'd love it if a number of you can have it too.
Branson is selling tickets on Virgin Galactic for $250,000. Elon Musk's rocket company SpaceX has even more ambitious plans. It's scheduled to send 4 civilians to the International Space Station next year at a cost of $55 million each. So at the moment, private space travel is out of reach for everyone except the ultra-wealthy. But space enthusiasts hope that as competition heats up, prices will become less astronomical and more aspirational. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more, let's go to William A. Gibson in Burlington, Vermont. He's an aerospace policy expert and economics professor at the University of Vermont. Good to have you back with us, Professor. So what we've actually seen is the richest person on Earth boarding a reusable rocket that he dreamed up and funded, launched to the edge of space, experienced a few minutes of weightlessness and then came back down to Earth. Why is that such a significant development in terms of space travel?
Well, it really shows the supremacy of markets. If you think about it, government has no way of telling whether it's worth going to space or not because they don't have any market test. We're seeing the emergence of this market in space tourism, and it's a wonderful thing. We've got significant competition here between 2 of the most distinguished designers, builders of suborbital vehicles, Virgin Galactic, and now Bezos' operation, Blue Origin. This is a phenomenal time for human beings. Now, keep in mind that these guys are spending their own money. Every billionaires are not endowed people. They both earned it. Some people may disagree with that, but it's difficult to argue that they're not being subsidized by the government. No one is forcing people to pay taxes to put fuel in these rockets. So that's a big difference from what we've seen before. This is just like in the early days of aviation. It's expensive, but keep in mind that we're still in the early days of aviation for many people on the face of the planet. Boeing recently estimated that only 20% of people have ever flown in a commercial airplane on the face of the earth. So yes, it's always going to be expensive in the beginning because of returns to scale. Once we scale up this activity, it certainly seems from the look of the faces of the passengers on both of these flights that it was well worth the expense.
Yes, we know that Elon Musk's space company SpaceX has successfully pioneered the commercialization of space travel for the launching of things like satellites and other payloads on behalf of countries and companies into space. Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin, at least for now, want to pioneer space tourism. Why is that more important or as important as what Elon Musk is doing?
Well, I don't think we can really say one is more important or less important. I think what we can say is that markets will sort out what's worth doing. And if Elon Musk continues to make deliveries to the International Space Station, if he continues on his project to colonize Mars, we'll see how that's paid for. It's much more direct consumer orientation when it comes to the two space vehicles that we've seen successfully launched this week. There, you're looking at a direct market relationship, and I think that's really quite extraordinary. Now, one thing is a big difference between these two, if you notice, is that the propulsive landing that Bezos's new Shepard has then allows it to land on the moon or Mars or other places without runways. Virgin Galactic is Earth oriented. They take off at a high altitude, 45,000 feet. The rocket then blasts off into space. Whether it goes to the Kármán line or not seems to be irrelevant to the passengers. Comes back, lands just like an airplane does. So this is not something that's possible to expand. The externalities of that activity are not really there with respect to deeper space exploration. So that's different. The other thing is the difference between the modes of flight. Branson has elected to use a very unusual technology mixed with old school technology. He has this shuttlecock design in which you don't really have to rely on autopilots to get through the interface between space, in which there is a reaction control system that determines where a spacecraft goes versus aerodynamic flight. That is the normal thing that we see with ailerons and tails and so forth on commercial or any other aircraft. That transition between the two is amazingly complex. The X-15 tried to do it. The pilots that flew the X-15, one died because the autopilot malfunctioned, but it was virtually impossible to coordinate the reaction control system versus the ordinary ailerons and tails aerodynamic control surfaces.
Okay.
That is something that we need to figure out. Branson has one approach. Bezos has a very different. Let's see what the markets say about that.
That's right, and it will be interesting to see where the two entrepreneurs take it from here. Professor William A. Gibson, always a pleasure. Thank you again for joining us.